Baton Rouge on. Primarily, we're going to focus with him on what it is that Terry Rooney is going to bring to the table. Certainly. I was told that for one former staffer's wife, Columbia was too big, and I thought, that's of all the things that I've heard about my hometown, I have never heard that Columbia was too big.
When assessing this town to decide if I wanted to live here or not once in that entire weekend did I think, man, this place is way too big.
Too big, yeah. Again,
I'm overwhelmed.
That was a new one on me. But anyway, we'll talk to DC and Koki about all the things going on around here. Let you know we're working on a few things for tomorrow. Paul Mainieri will be introduced at 4 p.m., so we will have that live here on the airwaves. And, again, working on a few other things built around on maybe both sides of that press conference. So as soon as we have more detail, we'll be sharing that with you. But we invite you to tune in through the afternoon tomorrow as we talk a lot more South Carolina baseball. College World Series gets going on Friday. We've talked a lot about that. Virginia making another trip. And John Hendry will be the third staffer with Monty Lee and the aforementioned Terry Rooney to join Coach Mainieri here in town. So, good luck to them. Do you now, if you're a Carolina fan, do you now pull for Virginia to win the College World Series so that you bring in that to the program?
I think you'd be a little more excited.
Yeah.
You'd be more excited if they won the whole thing as opposed to going, 2 and done.
Yeah.
You're excited either way because they're in the College World Series. Virginia's an awesome baseball program. And John Hendry has a good track record of developing those players at Virginia. But you'd be lying to yourself if you weren't more excited if he was fresh off a College World Series champion.
And in Koki Riley's piece, he talked about a conversation that Coach Mainieri and Coach O'Connor had and Ray Tanner had. And so, again, how it seemingly came to fruition quickly. And I guess Paul said, hey, the Hendry kid, can I have him?
He's not doing anything for you.
How does Brian? Yeah, sure. No, but looking forward to talking to both of those guys throughout the course of the afternoon. Not going to get into it now, but as we set the table in this opening segment, as we do every day, there's another bill, a new bill that has been introduced in Congress. This one will seek to label collegiate student athletes as just that and nothing more. So they would technically be prevented from being employees of their school. Andy Staples put out a tweet today because it's called one of the buzzwords in the they title these bills so they have like kitschy names so that you can like feel good about it. And it was like protecting student athletes, something or other. And Andy said, yeah, it's not protecting, it's limiting. And
A+ gaslighting. That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's some commitment to the bit right there.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, I read some of it. And the Power 5 schools today put out a joint press release, praising it. Of course they would.
Yeah. But
I like a lot of things that we've talked about the last couple of years. You know what I see there? Lawsuit. This is part of the problem. Now, here's the difference. And you say, well, wait, Jay, this would be a law. Yeah, well, listen, laws get challenged too. This would not be an NCAA rule, which was very easy, you'd think, in the grand scheme to challenge. And if you look back at how the courts have treated the NCAA's stance in the last decade, you realize that it has been pretty easy to beat them to the point now that they've given up. Things like the transfer rule, that's just gone now. It's just gone because it's not worth fighting because you're going to lose because, again, you can't restrict the rights of free Americans when they don't agree to said restriction or they don't have an ability to either confirm or deny how they feel to you. It's just, you will come in and abide by these rules. Well, again, I'm not going back down that road. But we'll get into some of those details on what that might look like. Again, is another bill going to be any better? Are you going to get a bill like that passed in an election year? Those are the real questions. I know every other year is an election year, but I don't know if that's where the priorities are at this point. So
getting things done too also seems to be just a hurdle.
Yeah.
In general.
Yeah.
Election year or not.
So we'll touch on that for you coming up in just a little bit. The sports world got hit today, and there's never a good time, and I'm sure I'll mention this again, but I was actually watching the Dan Patrick program this morning for a little bit, and anybody, whether you know, when Dan was on in the mornings, or if you listen to Dan when he replays on our station, or if you watch it on his app or on Peacock or whatever, you know, through the years, what kind of affinity Dan had for the great Jerry West, who passed away today at the age of 86 out at his home in California. And Jerry was on with him. It felt like a couple of times a year, and just always the nicest guy. But I know what what Dan goes through in a situation like that, because I've had a few people on before, like as many times as I had Dan Reeves on. I kind of felt that way. I only got to interview Dale Murphy once, but I swear I do not remember what I don't. I really don't. I mean, I couldn't tell you one thing. I was like, I'm interviewing, because Dale Murphy is still my number one, like, sports hero. There's Dale Murphy, and then there's others, and there's others that are really big. Mm-hmm. But Murph was always way up there. But you could always feel the respect and reverence, even if Dan was yucking it up with Jerry West. You could always feel that little bit extra. And Dan and the boys got pretty choked up this morning, and had Reggie Miller on, had Bill Platschke on. Bill, of course, LA Times. Reggie is from Los Angeles. Obviously played at UCLA, but played for the Pacers, but nevertheless is back home, lives in LA, and obviously knows what Jerry West means to that town. Jerry West is one of those rare players that won a finals MVP award for a loser, because he scored, like, he averaged like more than 40 points.
He's the only one to do that.
Yeah. In the NBA, right? There's only a handful in any sport that have done it, because typically it goes to the guy who was valuable to you winning. But he was so good in one of those finals, I guess against Boston, right?
Mm-hmm. It was one of the 8 that he lost against Boston.
It's crazy.
It was
like I think he got to the finals 9 times, and they only won once because Boston was so good.
Yeah, and the one they won was against New York and not Boston, which haunted him forever.
Yeah. And many of you know, too, that Jerry West, the NBA has apparently never admitted it, and it's been this thing for years, but today they were showing the photo. But Jerry West is basically the logo. That was one of his nicknames for a long time, the logo of the NBA. And they show the picture of him, and you're like, yeah, that's the shot. That's it. But what an amazing player. And, look, I didn't see him play. I freely admit I did not grow up in the 60s and early 70s when he was playing. By the time I knew who he was running the Lakers as GM. He and Pat Riley and Dr. Buss, were turning the LA Lakers into a global phenomenon. And he was instrumental in that. He's the one who made the trade that sent Vlade Divac to Charlotte for some kid from Philly named Kobe Bryant.
That turned out pretty good.
Did all right.
The whole story behind Kobe Bryant in that 96 draft is fascinating, in terms of John Calipari fumbling the bag with not picking him at 7, and what it took to get him to fall to that point.
He went, the Hornets got him at like 15 or 16, right?
I think it was 13.
13?
Yeah.
It's just crazy to think that Kobe Bryant was like, again, because he was a high school kid, but like, I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, no, let's get somebody else.
No one wanted to invest that money on a high schooler.
Well,
it was still taboo at that point.
I get it. It was so rare for somebody to come out of high school and be ready to go. 13th, yeah. But he put together the first iteration of Shaq's title runs in L.A., and then went to run the Clippers for a little bit and helped the Grizz for a little bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How did the Lakers ever let him get away? Because, Rob Pelinka's doing a great job.
They're about to hire someone with 0 coaching experience to be their next head coach. Things are going really well.
I'll do it.
You have just as much NBA coaching credentials as J.J. Redick does.
You there, tall guy. Get near the orange circle.
Dunk the basketball.
Put the ball in it. And then when the other guy tries to do that, stop him from doing it. That's right there. That's quality coaching, Elijah.
I call the 3-point play every now and then just to mix it up.
Yeah, okay, sure. If a guy like you that can shoot the ball toward the orange round thingy, go ahead. And then if you miss, somebody, other tall guy, get it and then give it to him again, see if he can do it the second time or third time. Right?
That's coaching.
That's basketball, right?
Yeah, that's drawing it up.
I mean, pay me.
And if they don't do it, it's the player's fault.
Yeah. It's the NBA. It's Players League. 803-404-6100 to join us on the phone lines. The Firehouse Subs text line. David Cloninger coming up in about 15 minutes. Get into some of your phone calls. A lot going on this Wednesday. You're listening to the Postgame Show. Cato's Power Equipment is wanting you to know that it's been raining a lot and grass is up. Rain amounts are up. Don't cut wet grass, though. That's one of the big pieces of advice from our buddy Ben Cato. Now, if you do, because you just have to, then stop into Cato's service department. Let them sharpen the blades up on your mower, get you good to go again. All right, they'd rather you just wait till it's a little bit dry. They don't mind the service department, pricing, but they're just giving you the good advice. But if you have to, you have to, right? We all get that kind of stuff. Time for something new because you're doing it for a living, and it's time for something even better. Get in and see the brand new things they've got for you. A lot of things on sale right now at Cato's Power Equipment, from Toro, Steel, so many others. They've got you ready to go for all your service department needs and so much more. 4012 West Beltline Boulevard, and always online at catospowerequipment.com. 20 minutes after 3 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Jay and Elijah with you. Jim, coming to you in just a second on the phone lines there, bud. Hope we get some phone calls from the GWAR ticket winners from yesterday. Have you heard from anybody yet?
Not yet. I do have the list of the 5.
Should we call them?
I'm actually really tempted to, just to see if they'd be willing to give their GWAR experience over the air. Last night, before going to bed, I refreshed myself on some of GWAR's work and some of their, visuals, their concert visuals. Gnarly stuff, man. I forget actually how much I enjoyed the music. I was so baffled just by their physical appearance when I worked security at one of their shows and exactly the stuff that was going on, with the crowd and everything. That was so jarring in its own that I didn't really pay as much attention to the music part of it. But last night, before going to bed, I'm sitting here watching, some YouTube videos of some of their live performances, and those dudes jam.
I was going to say, again,
they
you
really
don't
jam.
Despite whatever the theatrics might be, you do have to have a product that people actually want to be part of beyond that, and you've done it for 40 years. So
it's good.
That's there's that. Even if it's this sort of thing ain't my bag, baby, but. Again, if it's you, it's you. It's cool.
I love a good metal riff, man.
Yeah,
I'm a sucker for a good metal guitar riff, and they nail it.
Right. Let's get to Jim, who's going to bat leadoff, if you will, on the phone lines this afternoon. Hey, Jim. Good afternoon.
Hey guys, I got my finger right on the panic button for the Braves.
Ooh.
Do I need to go ahead and push it, or do I need to wait a little while longer?
And I feel you. Not yet. Not yet. Here's a couple of reasons why, in my opinion. Now, I will admit, Jim, clearly you are a Braves fan. I am an admitted Braves fan. So, two things. First, the Braves still have a comfortable, I say comfortable, but they're up, I think, 4.5 in the wild card race right now. So you've got some cushion there. I realize it's only the middle of June. Secondly, Jim, 3 years ago, the Braves were in a similar situation, and Alex Anthopoulos, now listen, every button he pushed worked. Freely admit that. But every button he pushed, which wasn't a panic button, ultimately led to the Atlanta Braves winning the World Series with those midseason moves that he made. You got Duvall, Rosario, Soler, and Peterson. And they all came in, and they all had an impact. Soler was the World Series MVP.
Mm-hmm. That ball still hadn't landed.
Yeah, man. Eddie Rosario was the NLCS MVP. Jock Peterson had a couple of home runs against Milwaukee. And Duvall, listen, the Braves I think Duvall would have consistently been an Atlanta Brave, except for one thing. He does make a decent amount of money. And the Braves just always look to him as like, well, you're the expendable guy. Like, it was hard seeing Eddie Rosario playing for Washington the other night. Might you look to them? I don't know. But I wouldn't push the panic button yet. David O'Brien had a piece this morning in The Athletic, Jim, and discussed a lot of what the Braves are looking for. Look, they need an everyday right fielder. You and I talked about this when Ronald Acuna went down, Elijah. Adam Duvall is not a right fielder. He's a corner outfielder as long as that corner is left.
Kind of. Yeah.
Yes.
Kind of. Even then, he's kind of.
Yeah.
Allowed.
And Jared Kelenic had been platooning with Duvall. And, Kelenic's, he's got to come around. He's got to come around.
Mike saying about that for him, for a long time.
Yeah, but but right now, Kelenic's your everyday left fielder. Michael Harris is struggling. The Braves have one of the worst OPSs in baseball. They're just not scoring enough runs. They're not getting on base either. But they're in a funk. There's no question, Jim. They're in a funk. I think some of these dudes can come out of it, but you do need to find a way to pump some life into that lineup. The scarier part is that you really do need to find a fifth starter. And I know that guy isn't somebody that you would likely have to really lean on should you get to the postseason. But you got to get to the postseason to win games in the postseason. There's one of my. I'm good at some of this, but I know for certain that you can't win in the playoffs if you aren't in the playoffs.
You're not one for predictions, but I think that's one of your more accurate takes.
Thank you. So, You got to do that. Everybody could use some bullpen help. But, the Braves may need a little bit more because they've had some injuries there, too, with guys like Matzik being hurt and stuff like that. And it's just, what had made you strong, including the unanimous National League Most Valuable Player, it's just not there. I mean, Ronald's done. Spencer Strider, you paid a lot of money to, done. Some of the young guys aren't coming around. And, again, Michael Harris, who you signed, to a big contract.
Your veterans aren't coming.
Yeah. I mean, Riley.
Where's Austin Riley at? I can't find him. He's had a horrific year.
He has, and look, sometimes it happens, but I wouldn't do it just yet, Jim. But I'm nervous too.
But here's some consolation for Jim though too. The National League isn't top heavy at all. It's not very good. There are only a handful of teams that are like above 500. I think the Braves. I think last time I checked, might be the only second-place team in the division above 500.
That's probably right. I haven't looked today.
Because the Reds they're battling for second in the NL Central.
Yeah.
They're under 500.
Yeah.
Second place in the West has been, one of the Diamondbacks, Giants, Padres are all fighting for it. All three of them under 500. Going to double check, make sure that's still true. But that has been the case for a hot minute.
Well, again, that's why, like I said, they're the first place team in the wild card chase, but the Braves aren't in this to be the wild card team. Now you may also say to yourself, well, winning the division hadn't helped them that much, and I don't disagree in theory, but I'd rather win the division than not.
Padres have finally creeped above 500, but only one game, 36-35.
Okay,
pretty.
Braves are like 7 over.
6
over. And I know Spencer Schwellenbach is going to pitch again tonight, but he's not done well in his first 2 major league starts.
There'll be some growing pains, but he's got some good stuff. I think overall, I would not press the panic button. You don't have a ton of competition right now. There is possibility for teams like Pittsburgh, Chicago, Cincinnati to get really hot and catch back up. San Diego, maybe. I'll believe it when I see it with them. I'm on a believe it when I see it basis with the Padres. But just get to the playoffs, man.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And work on some of these things right now. I don't think Austin Riley can play worse this season. So it's only up from here. I don't know how much worse Michael Harris can play, so it's only up from here.
That's fair. And
it's
again,
a large sample size sport.
Do you start shuffling the lineup, just try to get him some different looks? I don't know. I mean, Snit's got some work to do. The Braves will make some moves somewhere. And again, what do the Braves have in trade value? I'm not sure. That's another big component in all of this.
Because there are going to be some players or some teams, especially in the American League, White Sox, that will be willing to get rid of some talented players in order for some type of draft capital and, future prospects.
Yeah, no doubt. Here's hoping, Jim. I know our next guest feels like we do, but he won't admit it out loud, so I don't want to bring it up with him. We might see if we can do that. But David Cloninger on the other side, on the beat, Charleston Post and Courier. How did Ray Tanner land on Paul Mainieri so quickly? We'll get into that and more with DC when the postgame show continues. Guys, especially those of you who are a little older these days, not feeling like yourself as you hit a certain age, you're wondering why. Well, don't wait for it to change or go away. Instead, see Dr. Dan Balknight and his team at the Men's Clinic out in Irmo. You'll have a one-on-one consultation. They'll ask you questions about your daily life. Literally, what do you do every day? How do you do these things every day? How do you feel when you're doing them? You get some lab work done as well. You put all those things together, and they'll do their very best to get you back to feeling like yourself. There is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all treatment at the Men's Clinic. But too often, guys just don't want to talk about it, right? Or again, they'll just wait for it to get better. Tough it out. Don't be that guy. Call 803-875-MENS. Schedule a consultation or learn more about what Dan Balknight and his team do at themensclinicsc.com. Get back into talking Carolina baseball as the big news came out a couple of days ago. Paul Mainieri has become South Carolina's baseball coach, a 5-year deal at $1.3 million per. The baseball coaching budget basically doubling this week from where it was. We'll get into that and more with our very good friend David Cloninger of the Charleston Post and Courier, who has been following this as closely as anyone. Always good to have you, sir. We just had a Braves segment from a caller, so you're lucky for you. You don't have to worry about that. But I will ask you, how did we land on Paul Mainieri when he was not a name, it seemed, as of Saturday afternoon?
Well, Jay, that question I'm still trying to find out the answer to. I mean, obviously, contact was made between Tanner and Paul Mainieri. I don't know when. I don't know when was the first contact. All I know is that I was told, hey, on Saturday night, be ready for something on Sunday afternoon or Sunday lunchtime. And I thought, okay. And then that came and went. I had no idea what was going on. And then that lasted until Monday, to where I knew that at least one top candidate was thinking, I don't know what's going on. And all of a sudden, about 2 hours later, it was Paul Mainieri. So the fact that they managed to sneak this one by without anybody knowing about it until Teddy Cahill did it is impressive. And the fact that they got Paul Mainieri to come in and take over is impressive. So it's a very interesting and exciting time in South Carolina baseball.
And I just mentioned, basically a doubling of the coaching budget too, David. So that seems to indicate a real, I told Elijah the word I chose was a real recommitment to the program. Not that there was, a lack perhaps of commitment, but what does it tell you? I mean, look, you got to get Paul Mainieri. You're not going to, hey, Paul, come in for like $300,000 and let's see what we can do here. You're going to have to pay him a lot of money for his resume, but what does that tell you about how quickly not only they moved on him, but how much larger the overall staff salaries are going to be?
That's the thing, Jay. I mean, with Paul Mainieri getting 7 figures, I'm not that surprised because he commands that, and you do have to look at optics in the rest of the league now. I think there's only about a dozen baseball coaches making $1 million or more in the SEC in the nation right now, but at least 5 of them are in the SEC. Mm-hmm. So you had to have some optics there. You had to get USC at least in a good place. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's a good thing to say. Just offer them $1 million, be done with it. But 1.3, that's significant. And then, of course, you more than double Monty Lee's salary, and you hire Terry Rooney for $425, and thinking, okay, I mean, I guess you guys got the money because you're not going to promise it if you don't have it. But, of course, where was that money, at least for staff salaries, over the past few years? That's some questions that still need answering. But, of course, the past few years, you can always look at it and say, well, how much did COVID affect that? Right. So it's a very interesting time, but, of course, there was no resistance, apparently, to hitting the pocketbook to get these guys in here, because if Paul Mainieri is going to succeed after being away from 3 years, he's going to need a top-flight staff. And South Carolina addressed every need with that top-flight staff. You have an instant recruiter in Monty Lee. You have an overall recruiter who knows how to work NIL, Terry Rooney. You got a pitching coach in Terry Rooney. And I believe that John Henry, who is Jim Hendry's son, right, has a pitching background and is tied in with player development, NIL, and the transfer portal while he's at Virginia. And I believe, wasn't Jim Hendry the GM when the Cubs won the World Series?
Was that him or Theo? I guess was Theo president?
Theo. It was Theo. Yeah. I think, okay. But still, Hendry's got major league experience and is currently, an assistant to Brian Cashman with the New York Yankees, to which I'm like, well, okay. I mean, I won't look bad on you because of that, but you've got a good background there. So they've got a great staff lined up, and that's the thing to where Paul Mainieri won't have to have any major adjustments to getting into this new age of college baseball.
Yeah, and one of the things too I think that some people have pointed at is the age of Paul Mainieri and the reason that he left the game to begin with, which alluded to maybe some health issues. How much were those, do you think, were discussed when it came to him getting a job like this and knowing the grind of what SEC baseball is, how good the league is, and now you're bringing in Texas and Oklahoma? I guess how much of the health concerns were big concerns in terms of getting Paul back to getting him to South Carolina and back into the SEC?
Well, I'm sure that was the first thing brought up, Elijah. I mean, you have to look at that. I mean, first of all, when a guy left his last position, you look at why. Was he forced out? Did he resign? Did he just quit? Was he fired? Whatever. And it's like, no, he just left because he was in constant pain. He had back and neck issues, and if you look at a story that was in the Baton Rouge Jacket, he actually was missing a disc between vertebrae in his neck. So, of course, he was hurting all the time, and, surgeries weren't helping that. He was getting excruciating migraines even when he did. They did put a prosthetic disc in his neck, so it was like that's why he stepped away. So, sure, if you're the AD, you go in and looking at that, saying, are you okay now? And he pretty much he did say to the Baton Rouge Advocates, like, yeah, I'm pain-free now. I may get a stiff neck sometimes, but that's no big deal. And, of course, going in USC's favor on this, Paul Mainieri was a major candidate for Miami in 2023. He was a major candidate for Notre Dame in 2022. If those guys did their due diligence, and they did, and the health question was answered right off, it's like, okay, well, I think that's a concern. As for the age, as he said, I haven't forgotten the game. I never wanted to leave the game. He knows baseball. And, if you look at ages being just a number, well, Steve Spurrier was 59 when he got hired. Lutz was 62. And you might want to look at the ages of the last 3 managers who won the World Series, because they're all right around there. So 66 could be a thing of like looking down the future and saying, well, how long is he going to stay? But, he's got a 5-year contract. That's certainly not, an amazing amount. And you've got guys on staff who say feasibly at this point, well, maybe that could be the succession plan if it comes to that.
Talking to David Cloninger of the Post and Courier as we continue assessing the hiring of Paul Mainieri. All right, we've got the coaches out of the way, but I'm going to give you a fact, David. Coaches can't play the game. Only the players can play the game. So where do we stand on some of the talent that's around? Well, what more are you hearing about how they anticipate having the funds necessary to up the recruiting budget, NIL budget, and get some more guys in here?
Yeah, well, that's always going to be the question, isn't it, Jay? Because NIL isn't a one-year deal. It's got to be a constant year deal, and that price isn't going to go down. So that's a question that is going to be constantly asked, because you do look at how teams are winning these days, specifically Texas A&M, Tennessee, Kentucky, and you're building teams out of the transfer portal year to year. There can still be player development. You get a guy as a freshman and you prep him for 3 years and he goes off to the majors, but that's getting replaced by just getting guys from the transfer portal. And let's call it what it is, fellas. It's pay for play. No matter what the NCAA says, it's pay for play. That's how they're wed hand in hand with the NIL and the transfer portal. So with USC, the biggest news, Ethan Petrie already said, I'm in. I'm going to play here. Oh, that's terrific. That's a huge hurdle crossed right there. A bunch of other position players have been saying the same. Blake Jackson did, Kennedy Jones did, and a pitcher, Roman Kimball, did. So I think you have to look at, with this year's team, most of the position players are expected to be back. They just picked up a commitment from a big-time JUCO prospect today who was visiting. That's a good thing. They did lose a couple of recruits, which, okay, you can't make an omelet without breaking eggs. I want to see what's going to be done with the pitching. Because with Matt Williams not being retained as pitching coach, those pitchers are very close to him. I don't know how many of those guys will stay. And as you know, fellas, USC, they kind of threw the ringer with pitching this year. So it could be a case of like, well, if you can get a transfer portal guy, you need to go get a pitching staff. But we'll see how that goes. Like I said, Roman Kimball already said he was in earlier today.
And one of the big things, I meant to ask this earlier too, with the assistants, Monty's getting a pretty good pay bump as well. What are his responsibilities going to look like in terms of what his title is, the pay raise, and how much of him coming back to be on the staff had an impact on maybe guys like Ethan coming back and maybe, maybe Cole Messina down the line?
Well, I'd go ahead and take the last part first. I mean, I think Cole Messina would love to be back, and everybody would love to have him back, but I think we all know he's going to get drafted very high in Major League Draft, and deservedly so, and he'll probably go ahead and take that position. That said, anything can happen, but I don't anticipate Cole being a part of this team next year. That's one of those, if it happens, it's awesome, but you definitely expect it or even hold out a, well, maybe, not with him. There's some other guys that kind of fit that bill, but not Cole Messina. He's a guy that's probably going to go very early on day 2. But in terms of Monty Lee, he's instrumental in getting a lot of these hitters and position players back. They all love him. Of course, he's a guy that will really help with in-state recruiting. And that's going to really help kind of bridge that gap and say you're not going to be destitute in terms of unknown talent in year 1. You're not going to have to recruit solely from the transfer portals. We'll see how that goes, so what kind of team they'll be able to put together. But right now it's looking like, okay, well, you're going to have one expected huge hole in your lineup with Cole Messina leaving. But if Ethan Petrie's coming back, hey, great. That's one big question answered. There's your third hitter right there.
Good stuff as always, sir. We appreciate you. We'll see you tomorrow at the presser, 4 o'clock tomorrow. So right around this time tomorrow, we'll have it live here on the airwaves as well. Paul Mainieri officially announced as Carolina's new baseball coach. Thank you, sir. We'll see you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
That is our good friend David Cloninger, DCP&C, to follow on Twitter, postandcourier.com. Big movie anniversary today. I want to tell you about it on the other side. Welcome back into the postgame show. 11 minutes in front of 4 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Thanks, as always, to our buddy David Cloninger for joining us. As David said, he's still he's still a little puzzled's the wrong word perhaps, but we're trying to just figure out how, when, where did Paul Mainieri enter the chat?
The journalistic chops aren't done moving just yet.
I guess we find this out tomorrow.
Yeah, we're going to get a lot of questions answered tomorrow, but a lot of it is still mysterious because it came out of nowhere. How many coaching searches have you covered in your career, Jay?
A few around here. I couldn't tell you the number, but it's been a few.
I've covered a few myself. You know how many I've been surprised by with the actual hire based off, the information I get leading up to the official hire? Zero. None. We always know something. Somebody always says something. Word always gets out to where there's at least maybe two candidates, that it's down to, and then the decision gets made, and you might be surprised one was chosen over the other, but you're not surprised that one ended up getting the job at all. This was one where the name Paul Mainieri has not been discussed at all with anyone that we've spoken to until the Teddy Cahill report came.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
Stunning.
Tomorrow at 4 o'clock, official press conference. We'll carry it live here on 107.5 The Game. And again, we're working on a few things around the press conference. And once we get more confirmation of that, we'll pass it along so to tune in. Just go ahead and make a plan to tune in.
You're going to want to.
Yeah. Got a lot of stuff. I should have had you come back in with the theme song, and I don't know why. Can you punch it up real quick? Do you know what I'm talking about? You don't, do you? I didn't even tell you.
No.
On this date, in 1981, Raiders of the Lost Ark was released.
Oh, nice. You did not choose poorly.
Yeah. Well, that's part 3, but nevertheless, I have said before, if you made me pick movie, like on the desert island thing, it's Raiders. I don't know that makes it my favorite movie, which I know is weird to say, but it has everything.
It's in that group.
It has everything. I'm a Star Wars fan. I love Die Hard. I've said before, Die Hard is what Die Hard wants to be. So if Die Hard wants to be a Christmas movie, then it is. And are you going to tell Die Hard it's not a Christmas movie? Good luck with that.
I'll still do it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, and then, dude, when you get beat up, right? When you walk up to Die Hard and you get beat up, don't blame me because I told you.
That's a little past its prime. I feel good about my chances.
Okay, I'm telling you. I'm just telling you. Die Hard, comedy. Die Hard, action movie. Die Hard, love story. Die Hard, spy thriller.
Certainly versatile.
At least crime thriller, not spy thriller. Crime thriller.
Right.
Cop movie, all of it. Anyway, but yeah, on this date, 1981, I did not, maybe I had heard this, but it had been years, but something was on the other day about Harrison Ford. I say the other day, not too long ago, though. I did not realize that George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, Mr. Lucas wrote this is his story and his idea and his brainchild, but he didn't have time to direct it. And really, the studio had even said to him about like Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, like, yeah, hey George, you do the executive producing and the storytelling. We're going to get some other directors. But their first choice to play Indiana Jones was Tom Selleck.
Oh.
Yeah. And I get it. Tom Selleck's got, that look.
Yeah. Aesthetically, I don't know if you're losing anything.
I don't know. I mean, and he went on.
Mustache was strong.
Yeah, he went on to be a big star on TV in the 80s, obviously. But it's one of those things now when you stop and think, like, I cannot possibly imagine anyone else. So even if I try to picture Tom Selleck in the jacket, in the fedora, with the whip, with the pistol, all dirty looking, I can't really do it, man. It's like he's just like putting on the suit.
But talk about not being able to go wrong. I could totally see it.
And he, Mr. Lucas, obviously loved Harrison Ford. But I think there was even some talk about he just finished Empire and Harrison wants to do a few other things. But, I love the story as well about how Steven Spielberg got involved. George Lucas had seen him. The word was Steven Spielberg wanted to do a James Bond movie, because a lot of big time directors, one of the things they kind of wanted to check, on their resume was, I want to do a James Bond movie. And so he had been shopping for a James Bond movie with Roger Moore and with the group that does James Bond movies. And George Lucas found out about it. He's like, hey, I got something that I think you're going to love instead. Would you check it out? And obviously the rest is history. But that's kind of cool, too.
Pretty good history.
Yeah.
Get sliding doors movie moment.
Yeah. So anyway, there you go. With 43 years ago today, one of the greats of all time. Hour 2, talking to Koki Riley more about the Paul Mainieri hire coming up. So I tell you all the time about our good friend at Bet Cato's Power Equipment. And again, rain, growth up almost 125%. The grass growth, that is, year over year. Plenty of cutting to do. Listen, I love to cut the grass and do yard work. I don't like to do it, like all the time and spend tons of time on it. That's one of the reasons that I went to Cato's and got my 30-inch Toro Time Master. It's cut my mowing time in half. Now, that same mower is available in a battery-powered system. It's nice, quiet, smooth cut, and all you got to do is recharge the batteries. No gas, no other big engine-moving parts. They've got tons of great tools as well, trimmers, edgers, blowers that use the same batteries, and they can build a package for any type of use. There's even a 42-inch Time Cutter Zero Turn that is absolutely amazing and battery-powered. See these things for yourself, whether you cut your own grass, whether you do it for a living. 4012 West Beltline Boulevard, our very good friends at Cato's Power Equipment. 4 o'clock on this Wednesday. Welcome back in. It's the second hour of the Postgame Show. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Appreciate you being with us. Coming up in about 15 minutes, Koki Riley, covering LSU baseball for the Baton Rouge Advocate, will join us. We're gonna primarily focus in with him on what role he believes Terry Rooney is going to play. How does that role morph from an off-field role as LSU's recruiting coordinator into an on-field role as both recruiting coordinator and pitching coach? And obviously, I mean, look, Monty Lee is going to handle a lot of that. Paul Mainieri is going to be the closer. You got to figure that John Hendry is going to be able to do a lot of that as well. So this will be a group effort, certainly. But what has Koki seen from Terry Rooney these last couple of years? He's put together some good staffs. And some good, I mean, even after he left LSU to become the coach at UCF, a lot of what he had done the first time around helped LSU win the national championship in 2009. And he was instrumental in immediately getting Jay Johnson kind of up to speed talent-wise, and LSU won the national championship last season. So he's done it in that, in differing roles with similar results in two different eras. That's another thing to think about.
Which is really impressive.
15 years apart, basically, So we want to talk with Koki Riley about that. He'll be joining us coming up in just a little bit. Yesterday, we talked about South Carolina's football schedule, really all of the SEC football schedule times, with a few exceptions, were announced this week. And the only home game that we don't yet know about for a kickoff time is Ole Miss in week 5. Carolina has an off week before Mississippi comes to town. And that's one of the flex games. If you didn't see it yesterday, again, 4, maybe 5 Carolina games have a known kick time, and then the others have a window that's either the early window, which is a kick between 12 and 1, the afternoon window, which is 3:30 to 4:30, and then the night window, which I think they said technically 6 to 8, right?
Right.
But Ole Miss has flex next to it. So I went and looked, and the other big games that weekend that are going to kind of compete with prime TV spots, I don't want to say prime time because that's obviously an evening thing, are Tennessee at Arkansas and Auburn at Georgia. And the Auburn-Georgia game always grabs tons of attention, and it would make sense perhaps that one is the 3:30 game.
Would make all the sense in the world. Been the 3:30 game on CBS for years.
And then, so, I mean, you could have Tennessee at Arkansas and Carolina hosting Ole Miss both kick at night, right? I mean, you could. I think I still hold to what you and I said, and it's just you and me making an educated guess, let's be honest, any of us can do this that follow Southeastern Conference football, but that if South Carolina is 3-1 or better, you got to think, because I think Ole Miss I think this is Ole Miss's first conference game. Double check that for me, will you, real quick?
Double check that, yeah.
But I think it's Ole Miss's first conference game. I think they play 4. Maybe they have 1 before Carolina.
That should be a misdemeanor if that's the case. They have Kentucky before Carolina.
Okay, so their second conference
on
game.
September 28th.
Is that a home game?
It is. Start the season against Furman, Middle Tennessee State, at Wake Forest, home against Georgia Southern, and then they start playing real football teams.
Okay. Oh, that's right. You know what? It's not because Carolina's. You know what? It's week. I guess it's technically week 6, isn't it?
Correct. Game
5 for Carolina. My bad. So, in my head, I was thinking their first 4 games were non-con. So they get their whole non-con out of the way, right? And then go straight into 8 conference games. Is that correct?
They do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Which I don't have a problem with, but their rival game is a conference game, so that helps them. But anyway, if Carolina is any combination of, 3-1 or better, I think that's going to be a night game. And you probably expect Ole Miss to beat Kentucky in Oxford.
They should. I would be shocked.
And come in 5-0.
I have college football playoff expectations for this Ole Miss team.
Yeah, I know you're high on them, which is,
Very.
yeah, and I am too. I am too. But like I said, and I don't mean this, listen, 15 years ago, everybody playing college football, by and large, was like still in elementary school. So it doesn't really matter. As I said, the last time it felt like there was this much hype around Ole Miss football, they came to Columbia as a top 5 team about this point in the season, and the Gamecocks beat them.
Was that the Jevin Sneed quarterback to Ole Miss team?
They were on the cover of Sports Illustrated that summer.
Team. Dexter McCluster on that team, I think, too.
They were good, man.
Good squad.
They supposedly, but I think they ended up going like 9-3.
Yeah, they failed short of the expectation they had, certainly.
And might that be the same thing this year? And again, is it one of those trap kind of games for South Carolina to come in here and get Ole Miss? We shall see. But the others that I think they're competing with for spotlight time: Tennessee at Arkansas, and that may depend on how Arkansas is doing.
I've had the opposite of what the expectation I have for Ole Miss is. The opposite is true for Arkansas.
Yeah. And again, Auburn, Georgia. Just you know what? Just go ahead and tell Auburn, Georgia they're going to kick at 3:30 because that's what you want.
Might
anyway.
as well. Yeah,
that's what you want anyway.
Yeah,
just do that. Let's get back on the phone lines. Rick is up next on this Wednesday. Hey, Rick.
Hey, guys. Just want to talk a little baseball.
Okay.
I am 60 years old, and about 8 years ago I was diagnosed, and that I stopped playing ball. But, I'm really excited about the coach that USC hired because I know, based on some of the things that I've read about him, he believes in, I think, are staples. Center field defense, second base, shortstop defense, catcher defense.
Mm-hmm.
And some of his years at LSU, they were like 993, which is, that's strong. And I feel like basically we've got a coach similar to Ray Tanner in how he looks at baseball. And, I'm really excited because I still have a 28-year-old daughter that watches baseball with me, and she looks on some broadcasts how the catcher calls defense, and she understands that defense is not necessarily how you win games, but defense is how you don't lose games.
And I think there's times when you can lose. Look at Carolina in the SEC tournament, right? If you play just a little bit better defense,
all those errors in a 5-game stretch cost you a chance at winning the conference title.
Yeah.
Even in the regional, I think the last game they had 4 errors.
I don't think it was the last. The first one they had a few.
Yeah.
The first one they had a few errors, and that should have cost them that game.
Yeah,
in all honesty.
And they found a way.
I guess it just stresses a ball club when unforced errors. You're going to have errors here and there, but unforced errors will lose you a ball game if your offenses are equal. And Mainieri, I don't think there were any under 988. So I am really excited because defense, just like wins championships in football, defense may not win you championships, but what they will divert a loss.
Sure. No, I agree. And thanks for the phone call, Rick. I look back, as we said, one of the reasons I'm high on North Carolina going into this College World Series is how good they are at defense. And we saw that on high-level display in the clincher against LSU last week up in Chapel Hill. So and as we said, a lack thereof can cost you. And yeah, he hit on one of the things. As I said a bunch of times, especially late in the season, R, H, E on the line score. The E's are going to happen. That's part of the game. That's why they're so prominently displayed on the scoreboard, on the box score, in your scorebook. Errors happen.
Yep.
It's funny things happen when you put a ball in play, which is also why you want to put a ball in play. And that's another one of the fundamentals that Coach Mainieri is going to stress.
And not leading the country in strikeouts.
Yeah, you got to make contact with the baseball. You got to swing the bat to make that contact. There's another fact.
That's a physics fact too. That's not just sports,
unless
that's
you know,
physics.
and then I don't want any of y'all to say, well, Jay, a guy could throw a pitch so badly that even if a hitter has the ball on his shoulder or the bat on his shoulder, the ball can. Yeah, I get it, but y'all know what I mean. I don't want somebody to come at me with that. Well, in a literal sense,
Technically,
yeah, you
speaking.
could find a because you could, but y'all know what
But
I mean.
I don't like those odds.
No. And as we said, too, it was just somewhat unfortunately fitting that South Carolina's entire baseball season ended with a called third strike. So not only did you strike out, but you struck out looking at the baseball. And defense does need to improve a little bit. I remember Mark telling us, we fielded 979 in the regular season in conference play, and yet somehow it just
Fell apart.
Got away from them, like a lot of things at the end of the year. And you got to stress those little things do matter. And in a league like this one, where so many games could be decided by a play or two, it's an absolute must. Rick, thank you for the phone call. Appreciate it. Again, Coach Paul Mainieri, this time tomorrow, will be holding his introductory press conference. It's actually going to be at Williams-Brice. There's not a room big enough, I imagine, for some of the coverage at the ballpark. So you might think, why aren't they doing it? And you don't want to do it outside.
No.
It's just it
Too hot.
gets uncomfortable.
I'm going to be uncomfortable anyway.
If you want to do it outside at Founders, then you'd have to do it at like 7 a.m.
And ain't no one want to get up for that.
So you're not going to do that either?
No. We'll take the air-conditioned room in the afternoon.
Yeah, it'll be at the Cockaboose Club down there on the south side of Williams-Brice.
Sounds prestigious.
Tomorrow at 4. That's a nice place. It's like basically a kind of a bar, like a brew pub.
Automatically makes it a nice place in my book.
Yeah, they got beer.
Count me in.
I don't know if they have beer tomorrow. Should we check?
Oh, so it's BYOB then, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I'll bring some.
I'm writing it down.
I'll bring some.
BYOB.
Yeah, why not?
To the pressure. Yeah.
Why not? By the way, we were going to be at Angry Fish tomorrow, and then this happened. So we're going to now be at Angry Fish in Lexington on Friday. So we still want you to come say hey at Angry Fish and enjoy. They got some good beers, man.
I'm excited.
They got some good beers.
You've talked it up.
Yeah,
I've only had a select few amount of Angry Fish.
Yeah, they got some good brews. So Friday, 3 o'clock at Angry Fish. Tomorrow, Paul Mainieri press conference at 4. Speaking of Paul Mainieri, Koki Riley talked with him on Tuesday. We'll get into Koki's thoughts on what Coach Mainieri brings to Columbia, but maybe more importantly this time around, what does new recruiting coordinator Terry Rooney bring to Columbia? Koki Riley of the Baton Rouge Advocate will join us when the postgame show continues. 18 minutes after 4 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back in. It's the Postgame Show. He's Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you so much for being with us. Still to come, headlines of the day, drive around the SEC and more, but we turn our attention back towards Gamecock baseball. Welcome onto the program, Koki Riley, covering LSU baseball for the Baton Rouge Advocate and NOLA.com. Appreciate the time, sir. How are you?
Doing very well. How's it going?
Doing well. I know you had your one-on-one with Coach Mainieri the other day, and I want to circle back around to that in just a second. But I told the audience, Koki, that what I really want to focus on with you is having you maybe give us a little primer on who Terry Rooney is and you know, how instrumental he's been in developing the roster that won a title last year, that has had a good season, maybe not up to the LSU standards on a year-by-year basis, but still another good run in the SEC tournament, which has become a thing for the Tiger program. But tell us more about Terry Rooney and then what you think he's going to maybe bring as a pitching coach as well.
Terry Rooney, this past season was his first year back at LSU. He had previously been Paul Mainieri's pitching coach in 2007 and 2008 when Mainieri first arrived at LSU, and then he took the head coaching job at UCF. And then bounced around as an assistant for a few years after being the head coach at UCF for, I believe it was 8 seasons. And then he came back to LSU as really more of a recruiter and a program development role. It was an off-the-field coaching role. It was really the first he'd done that in a while. He was around the team, and you'd see him at game days, but he wasn't an official coach of the team. But they invented this role so they could get a guy like him in his sort of mind for building a program and recruiting to get his mind into building. I mean, this is the same guy who was able to get Justin Verlander to Old Dominion and DJ LeMahieu to ASU. He has a really great track record as a recruiter, and it sounds like he's going to be a recruiting coordinator at South Carolina. So he's definitely qualified to be in that position, and he has a ton of experience as a pitching coach. He wasn't the pitching coach here at LSU this time around, but he was back in 07 and 08, and that's really his background as an on-the-field coach. And obviously that ended up working because he brought in a lot of the guys and developed a lot of the guys that helped get LSU that 2009 national championship. So, this hire just made a lot of sense right off the bat from Mainieri, just given his background and his experience, not just as a pitching coach, but also as a recruiter.
Yeah, that's the one thing I was going to ask you, too, in terms of being a pitching coach. I mean, pitching in South Carolina baseball has kind of a turbulent relationship in the last few years, and that's something certainly that, they would have liked to have seen straighten up that could have taken them a little farther this year. But, we've talked a lot about the recruiting, and anytime you can name drop Justin Verlander is one thing. But what's his maybe reputation as a pitching coach, maybe some of his strengths in terms of what he's been able to do in his time at LSU?
Yeah, I wasn't able to see it as much firsthand. And again, he wasn't the pitching coach here. It was Nate Yeske, who obviously has a great track record as a pitching coach himself, and did a good job of helping sort of turn around the slow start that LSU's pitching staff had this season. But again, extensive experience. He was the pitching coach at Alabama. He was the pitching coach at Purdue. He was pitching coach, I believe, at Houston as well. Obviously his head coaching experience and associate head coaching experience. He's just kind of the right. He's just he's just very comfortable with Paul Mainieri, and Paul talked a lot with me about how after Brian O'Connor, who's now the head of Virginia, left Mainieri when O'Connor was Mainieri's pitching coach at Notre Dame. When he left him for a head coaching job, Mainieri said it was like losing his right arm. He needed someone to sort of, replace that guy, his pitching coach. He did a national search, and he ended up landing on Terry Rooney. And they worked for 3 years at Notre Dame as a pitching coach, and he brought him along when he decided to come to LSU, and he was here for LSU. He was here at LSU for 2 years, and he got a head coaching opportunity himself.
Talking to Koki Riley, the Baton Rouge Advocate. Again, Paul Mainieri, around this time tomorrow, will still be in the midst, we believe, of his introductory press conference here in Columbia. Take us through what you know, and I'm not saying like, hey, how much did this guy make and how much did that guy make when it comes to NIL, but the embracing of that structure now at LSU and the things that Terry Rooney brings. You mentioned some of the abilities to recruit, but there's a second part to that equation these days.
He definitely understands NIL as a guy who has had to work in sort of in that space over the last few years, and Paul Mainieri has not at all. I mean, he retired in 2021, and then I think the law passed like a mere few days or a month after, or less than a month after he retired. So it's going to be a big challenge for Paul Mainieri to get his head around it, to understand the importance of NIL and the transfer portal, and especially when you're in the SEC, when there are so many other teams that are obviously that's just a massive thing. In terms of LSU, like obviously NIL is certainly a factor for them, and it's something that they definitely prioritize. But at the same time, I don't know if it's necessarily like a funny money thing where they're just throwing money at recruits, throwing money at guys in terms of just having them sort of understand. Getting guys because they're necessarily paying them through the nose, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, I think that's the sort of relationship they have with LSU, and I'm just really curious how Mainieri sort of like is able to adapt to this environment. And
certainly back to to Paul. You've got to speak with him very recently, face to face, and or talk to him after the news that he was getting hired. How can you gauge, I guess, his energy level? He's been out of the game for a couple of years now. He's going into a whole new era of collegiate sports. How would you kind of gauge where he is in terms of how ready he is just to get back into coaching after this little hiatus?
Okay, I can hear you guys now. Sorry about that.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, the radio fairy has done its job once again. But yeah, no, pretty much what I was just asking here is, in your interaction with Paul, right after, the announcing of his hiring, how could you maybe gauge his energy level for a guy that not only took a small hiatus from the sport, but is coming into a whole new world of college athletics that he just never had to deal with before? Yeah.
In terms of Paul's energy, I think he's got a ton of energy. And he's really a high energy guy, very much a people person, isn't afraid to say what's on his mind. That's a good thing for people like you and I, and it's just a very interesting thing for fans to sort of dissect. But regardless, like, he's extremely personal, extremely friendly, extremely high energy, and I think it really crushed him, the fact that he had to retire in the first place. And I think I don't think it was a very well kept secret to the fact that it just never felt like he was totally satisfied being in retirement. There was always a part of him that wanted to coach again, and sometimes it's hard to let go of the thing you love. And I think one of the reasons why he turned down the Notre Dame opportunity, the Miami opportunity, in part was because the timing wasn't right, or he just wasn't quite healthy enough. And he had 2 neck surgeries toward the end of his time at LSU, and it just got to the point with his neck and hit with just where his body was physically, where he just had to retire. And he's really used the last 3 years to sort of recuperate and re-energize his batteries. And now apparently he can play golf without any pain. And he loves the golf. So that's pretty important note to remember. And I think through my conversation with him, I was sort of convinced to the point where I think that he can do this job. He can do a job at least, and from at least a physical standpoint, that he can hold up. And it sounds like this extra rest, these extra couple surgeries after he was retired, have really helped him out.
Last thing for you, I got it just over a minute here, and it's not about Paul Mainieri coming over here, but Jay Johnson did have a press conference the other day, and I know he mentioned Coach Mainieri, and they'll see each other next year here in Columbia, but that's not what I want to ask you. Jay Johnson was also asked about any interest in the Texas job, which at last check, Koki, and I asked this tongue-in-cheek, is not a vacated position. So, what's going on there? You think in terms of where Jay Johnson might be if the Texas Longhorn gig does indeed open?
Guys, if I'm being honest, I would be absolutely stunned, surprised, shocked, whatever word you want to put it, if Jay Johnson left LSU for Texas. He said that he hasn't been contacted by Texas at all, and if they were to contact him, it would be through Scott Woodward, the AD, first. There's really been no indication that that's even happened yet. Again, it was suggested by Kendall Rogers that Texas would reach out to Jay Johnson to sort of see if he'd be willing to take that job. I don't even know. First of all, they haven't even fired David Pierce yet, so they have to do that first before we can even entertain this idea. And when he answered that question, it was he really just redirected it towards what his focus has been in the portal and just trying to rebuild this roster for next season. And that's where his focus is at the moment. I really don't think he's going to leave for Texas. And that's not just me speculating. That's me just looking at, the state of both programs. And I don't know. Do you guys think the Texas job is some massive upgrade from the LSU job?
No, probably not. Not in today's world. I would say it's almost 50-50 at this point. Historically, perhaps, but yeah. Koki, up against the break, man. Appreciate your time. Koki Riley writes for The Advocate, KOKI, Koki Riley, to follow along on Twitter. Appreciate it, man. We'll see you down the line.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys.
You bet. You're listening to the Postgame Show.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a couple accidents to get to you that are causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon. And the good news is that there are only a couple to get to. One in Richland County, an accident has recently been reported on Highway 1 at Augusta Road near Clemson Road. So traffic's moving a little bit slowly through that area. And lastly, we have only one in Lexington County. That accident's over at US 378 near Wise Ferry Road. Traffic moving slower than usual over there because of that. But other than that, roads are pretty clear here in the Midlands.
Been talking some Gamecock baseball. Paul Mainieri press conference tomorrow at 4 o'clock. We here at 107.5 The Game working on a few things on both sides of that presser, so we'll have more details for you hopefully coming up in just a little bit. Thanks again to Koki Riley of the Baton Rouge Advocate for joining us in that last segment. It's funny, just real quick here, apropos of nothing that we're discussing locally, but the reason I brought that question up is because there was a clip that went around the other day of Jay Johnson saying, yeah, Paul called me and told me he was taking the job. So that was sort of like confirmation before the confirmation. But in that same clip, Coach Johnson, LSU's head baseball coach, was asked about any interest in the Texas job. And so I had it on my computer at my desk as I was show prepping the other day. And I wasn't really watching it, right? I'm just kind of listening. And I was like, wait, what? And so I immediately scrambled because you and I had talked about that. There have been whispers that David Pierce is going to be let go, despite the fact that in 8 seasons he's been to the College World Series 3 times.
There's some angst in Austin.
But it's dipped a little bit, and they know what league they're coming into and all of that. And so I was like immediately like, did he? And I was like, wait. He hadn't been fired yet, or at all. I say yet, like I should just say he hasn't been fired. That being said, in some of the conversations that I had around South Carolina's baseball search, I did manage to find out, and again, it's just chatter that, if Texas could, they'd like to talk with Tony Vitello, or that they might like to talk with a guy like Brian O'Connor. Well, I'd like to talk with them too. They're both in the College World Series. Are they going to leave programs that are currently in the College World Series? Will their schools allow that to happen? And if that's all Texas is waiting on is for dudes to finish the World Series, you may as well, if you're going to can the guy, don't make him twist in the wind, right?
Imagine being Coach Pierce and seeing like that clip, of Jay Johnson talking about the Texas job and being like, "You forget about me? Yeah, you haven't fired me yet." That'd make me want to pull a Shaka Smart. Speaking of Texas
just
athletics,
go,
and just bounce already.
Yeah,
clearly not wanted here. Already talking to other people.
I mean, that just seems odd. Like I said, if you're going to make the move. What? And I just looked up a headline that said Chris Del Conte. This is one of the fan sites at Texas, but the headline from earlier today, I might add, is Chris Del Conte. He's the AD. Chris Del Conte's silence on David Pierce speaks volumes. When there isn't even the dreaded vote of confidence, there's no way forward for the Longhorn baseball coach in Austin. And then it goes on to discuss the things that have happened.
Purgatory.
This year,
purgatory.
Look, this year was tough. This was not a Texas kind of year. They won 36 games. They were a 3 seed. Making the tournament is obviously an expectation. Hosting a tournament is an expectation.
Hosting is almost a requirement.
Basically, and that's fair. That's what they've done. But he was asked just the other day, will I return? That's not in my hands. I know how well our team plays, and I know how well our staff has worked. I've been doing this a long time. We've had a ton of success, so I'll just leave it at that. And he's not wrong. In Texas, 297 wins, 162 losses, 3 trips to the College World Series, another super regional, And they've won the Big 12 a couple of times. That's pretty good resume.
It's a really good resume.
At almost every school, but I think Texas is maybe more concerned about the slide this year, and is that something that's continuing? But again, to go back to the headline of the article, the silence speaks volumes, and there's no way forward. I mean, didn't do it. Go ahead. I mean, at least I will say this much, and we mentioned this last Monday when the day that Mark Kingston was fired. It's like, well, we all by then seemed to have a pretty good idea that it was coming, like, after the loss. But I don't know how many of us thought it'll be done, before 11 o'clock in the morning the next day. But the point I'm making is, Ray just went ahead and ripped that Band-Aid right off.
Yeah, don't delay the inevitable.
Especially
before you start talking to other candidates.
Texas season has been over now for the same amount of time that South Carolina's has. Anybody that lost in the opening weekend. What are you waiting on? And like I say, are you waiting to see if you can get Tony Vitello or Brian O'Connor, and that if both of them say no, you're going to keep David Pierce? I mean, listen, it is Texas, and you can go get one heck of a coach, and Texas won't have a problem if they have to. They won't have a problem paying their next baseball coach $2 million. And I think there's only one or two coaches making that right now. I think Tim Corbin makes makes over $2 million. I don't know if anybody else. I think Kevin O'Sullivan's close, right? Mm-hmm. I think Tony Vitello is about to start making $2 million.
Especially if they flirt with winning a championship.
Well, I just think that's what Tennessee's going to have to do to keep him.
Yeah,
I really do. I think Tony Vitello is going to start. He's going to be in that club. I would say he's earned it in today's market. I would say he's earned the opportunity to be one of the highest paid coaches in baseball.
In the last 4 years, has there been a coach more successful that he hasn't won without winning
without winning the World Series? No, but there again, that's the next big hurdle to clear. And will Tennessee get that done this year? Again, the odds say no, if only because the odds are against the number one overall seed in the NCAA baseball tournament.
Those sets of odds say no. That MGM says otherwise.
But I don't know. Again, I found it interesting, but I just remember scrambling like immediately into my Google search, like, wait a minute, did David Pierce get traded? I was like, no, he still has a job. Why would you ask somebody about and I get it. Reporters have questions to ask. But it just seemed weird.
Unhinged.
Yeah.
The unhinged behavior from the University of Texas to putting, some very public feelers out before canning your coach. Wouldn't be the first time, though. It's kind of their thing.
So last year, again, not this past season, not 24, but in 23, they won the Big 12. They hosted in the first weekend. They did not host a Super. They lost to Stanford, who went on to the World Series. I remember watching that. It was good because Sunken Diamond's another one of those parks that's like weird at night. Like y'all need extra lights for television purposes, please. I guess
too many college baseball parks.
Yeah, I guess it's fine when you're there, but I like bright on television. That's why
being able to see
there's lights all over the place. Speaking of baseball, I mean, this is not a really nice letter. I'm not going to sit here and read it, but Gavin Casas has written a nice goodbye to Carolina baseball. He played all 5 years. He played 2 years at Vandy and 3 years at Carolina. He got his COVID year, so he's done. And, of course, to see him get hurt the way he did and wince in incredible pain with the broken hamate bone, he'll get drafted, and hopefully he gets a good opportunity. I don't know what this summer looks like with the broken bone, and I don't know how much that affects the draft status. I imagine some, but at the same time, you can see some of the real potential that he's got, and will a team? I'll be curious to see where he goes. Yeah, it might affect him by a round or two, but I wouldn't expect him to fall so far back because of that. Those are rather common baseball injuries these days, and they heal. But if you want to see it, you can go to his Twitter feed or just punch it up or on.
This is well done.
X.
Nah, it's not.
It was nice.
It's Twitter.
By the way,
he tweeted it.
Apropos of nothing again, I know I've said that already once this segment.
We'll rename the show that.
Thank you. We should have a segment apropos of nothing.
We should.
Actually, that's a good idea. Write that down. Yeah. That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
It's going on the notes.
The Twitter community, the X community is in a frenzy because I guess today Twitter made likes private.
Something about you saying the X community
Maybe that's why the likes
really
are private.
really opens the door for a lot of interpretation that might not be accurate to what you're trying to convey.
No, it wasn't. But the Twitter community, and so I told Elijah, I went and looked. I've been on Twitter for more than 15 years. I have 10 likes.
You're not a liker.
I don't
on
like
Twitter.
stuff. It's not that I don't like it.
You don't physically like stuff. You might like something.
Yeah. But
press the
if I really want to share something or I think I'll just retweet it. But I just, there's nothing against it. And like is a feature people enjoy using, and I get it. I appreciate it. I just don't do it. But I've liked 10 things.
And you've had your Twitter for how long?
15 years.
I've had mine for almost a similar amount, and I've liked over 44,500 tweets in that time.
Impressive.
Serial liker.
Impressive. I might tell you about one of them when the postgame show continues. 11 minutes in front of 5 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Do want to remind you we were scheduled to be at Angry Fish Brewing in Lexington tomorrow afternoon. That has been pushed to Friday because tomorrow we'll have full coverage of Paul Mainieri's introductory press conference as the new baseball coach at South Carolina. So I didn't want to have to try to blend a whole bunch of those things into one. So we'll move the Angry Fish 5-year celebration to Friday.
Oh, yeah. Just got to move it one more day. Hopefully that fish isn't too angry that we had to.
No, it'll be fine.
Had to move.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
It's kind of a big deal.
Talk about irony. I was going to go. I went back in. Again, I've only liked 10 things I was saying on Twitter. I just don't.
In 15 years.
Yeah, I just don't really ever do it. I mean, again, it's nothing personal. I just don't ever.
Not even on accident, too. I'll accidentally like something just by scrolling.
I feel like one or two of these actually might be
accidental likes.
Yeah. I think a couple of them might be. But one of them was from July of 2018 that I was going to share with everybody. And it was a ranking, and I don't even remember what the number one was, but a ranking of the top 50 breakfast cereals. And so I was like, because that was always a fun one. I think we must have clearly July. We were, in the depths of summer, in between.
As it happens in sports talk radio, sometimes it can get a little weird.
And July 12, I'm going to say, is probably in 2018 the week before SEC Media Days. So, one of those kind of weeks. But sadly, the list no longer exists, even on the interwebs, where I thought the internet was forever, but apparently not when it comes to this particular ranking of breakfast cereals.
Well, because then if you kept it up forever, we could just refer to it forever. Now we have to have our own new list of best breakfast cereals.
If I had to pick, it wouldn't be today's, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But if I had to pick the cereal as a kid that I wanted more than any other cereal, I'm going to throw you one you wouldn't think of. I loved Boo Berry.
That does take me for a surprise a little bit. Trying to stereotype you in what your cereal tastes would be. I don't think I would have guessed Boo Berry top 5.
Yeah.
You give me 5 guesses.
I loved Boo Berry like as a kid. I don't know what I really morphed into beyond that when it maybe just, and I can't think of the last time I had Boo Berry. I think one time I bought it, seeing if my girls would like it, and then I think I ended up eating the whole box because either they didn't like it or I just said, to heck with it, I'm going to eat it. These days, I'm older. I like, like Honey Nut Cheerios are good for you.
So yeah, that one does not surprise me.
I like those. I still like, good old-fashioned Frosted Flakes or Apple Jacks.
See, Apple Jacks is number 1 for me.
That's a quality product.
I love.
Have you had the apple cinnamon Cheerios?
I have not.
Those are pretty good.
Just not a big fan of Cheerios.
Okay.
Even the Honey Nut ones, it all seems bland to me.
No, I get it. Cheerios also has like a banana Cheerios now. Have you had that one? Actually, you haven't had that?
No, I haven't, but I have witnessed Terry Ford eat bananas in his Cheerios.
Yeah.
Cut up bananas, put them in his Cheerios.
My grandma.
I did witness that with my own 2 eyes, and I have never seen that before.
My grandma always did that, and she'd put them into like regular cornflakes and then try to tell you that it's just as sweet as Frosted Flakes. And I was like, but you're just lying to me. Like, why, and you're my grandmother. I love you. I trust you.
Yeah, that's a violation of trust.
Or like, and she was always, my grandma was super healthy, like way before people did what they do today. Like my grandma was that way.
Yeah. My grandmother was a nurse for a long time. So we were.
So like Product 19 and Special K and all that kind of stuff.
Wheaties, did you get
Wheaties are good, man.
Don't lie to me.
Wheaties are good. But again, they need sugar or something. They're just boring.
Wheaties are,
but they do have a nice taste.
I don't care who you put on the cover. They're not good.
Well,
real people don't actually think. You have convinced yourself that Wheaties are good.
Does Wheaties have...
I will not accept that.
Like a frosted Wheaties?
They do, but even then, I mean, that frosting has to do a lot of heavy lifting. And I know frosting can do a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah.
But like, you're frosting. You're not a magician, right?
Right.
It's... That's tough.
But the banana...
Tough ass.
The banana in the cornflakes and milk, and like, oh no, it'll be sweet, it'll be good. And I'd be like, yeah, no, it's not.
To whom?
Yeah, well, to her. May she rest in peace. She was an awesome lady. Yeah, she was an awesome lady, but she, she was trying to pull one over on the bananas in the cereal. And there's nothing wrong with bananas in cereal or blueberries or strawberries in cereal. I don't have a problem with it. But it's just like, don't tell me that the sweetness of the banana is going to completely enhance the regular cornflake.
It's not.
Because it doesn't.
It's not. Appreciate the effort, but
anyway.
You're a little too old to pull that trick on.
I don't know what the number one cereal was. I can't remember because it doesn't have it on here, and I was kind of bummed out.
On our first episode or segment of Apropos of Nothing.
That could be it.
Get to the answer to that.
Headlines of the day, drive around the SEC, more on the hiring of Paul Mainieri. Coming up in the final hour.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a couple accidents to get to you, or a few actually, that are causing some issues here in the Midlands. We'll start with a big one. An accident's got the left lane completely blocked on 26 westbound near exit 107B and I-20. Traffic moving almost at a standstill at this moment. In Richland County, we got a couple more to get to. One on Highway 1 at Augusta Road near Clemson Road. That one's caused some issues for about the last 30 minutes. Another one on I-26 eastbound at Bush River Road near exit 108A. Lastly, we have an accident that's just been reported on Old Orangeburg Road near Platte Springs Road.
It is 5 o'clock news time on this Wednesday. Welcome back in. Final hour of the postgame show alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Appreciate you being with us. We'll have more on Paul Mainieri's hiring coming up in our 5:15 segment. But if you have not yet heard, Coach Mainieri's introductory press conference will be held tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock. It's going to be actually at the Cockaboose Club on the south side of Williams-Brice Stadium, a much bigger room than anything over at the ballpark. And again, you're not going to do it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in Columbia, South Carolina in June. Bad idea.
Yeah, it's not getting me there
Outside.
If that's the case.
Yeah,
No.
outside. Yeah, not doing that outside.
Much. It'll get nasty.
But we'll have that for you live tomorrow at 4 o'clock. And again, we are actively working on a few other things around the press conference for tomorrow afternoon's program, and we'll bring those along in just a little bit. Do have a piece of Gamecock basketball news, and we'll touch more on all of this in the drive around the SEC. But ESPN and the Southeastern Conference, Atlantic Coast Conference have announced the 2024 SEC ACC Men's Challenge. Carolina will play Tuesday, December 3rd at Boston College. These two schools have only played 3 times. BC leads 2-1. They first met in the semifinals. You remember this, Elijah, of the 1971 Quaker City Classic.
I love a good Quaker City Classic.
Carolina won that one at the old Palestra, 86-64.
Historic venue.
And they played a home and home in 09 and 10. BC won both of those ball games. So this will be the 4th all-time meeting at Boston College. The tip time. I guess TV time, too, but tip time will be announced at a later date.
Unfortunate draw.
Tuesday night, December 3rd. What does the early EBPI tell you about this game?
It's giving, based off of what I know, how both teams did in the transfer portal, it's 65% South Carolina.
Oh, wow.
It's still a long road trip. It's still a game on the road.
Yes.
But Boston College has just shown little to no life in the last, couple decades. I don't think I've taken Boston College seriously in basketball since Jared Dudley donned the uniform, and he ran out of eligibility over 20 years ago. So to say that he ain't walking through that door would be an understatement. He absolutely is not doing that.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Again, Tuesday night.
Useless.
Tuesday, December 3, Gamecocks at BC. We'll have the full rundown. Are there enough teams? Does somebody get left out? One team gets left out, right?
Has to.
Wait,
yeah.
no. Wait, this year
In the ACC?
ACC just grew to like 47 schools.
Oh, they did,
though,
yeah.
so.
Which is why some of the matchups on here, when you hear that they're in the SEC ACC Challenge, is going to make you
be
nauseous.
like Cal.
I'm telling you right
Cal
now.
versus Oklahoma.
I'm telling you right now. There
I don't know
are
if that's one
on
of them.
here that are so incredibly gross.
Now, I told Elijah because I had not seen the lineup when I got to the office today. And he said, I want you, what'd you say? Hold your ears.
Yeah,
and so
hold your
I thought you were going to tell me Carolina was going to like Cameron.
Oh, no, that would be exciting news. I would have jumped at the opportunity to tell
But then
you.
I almost instantly said, well, they're probably going to want, like somebody. But I don't want you to tell me. So I told Elijah, just hold the list. And he's going to so I am not looking at the list. And he's going to surprise me and hopefully all of you during the drive around the SEC because I want to react.
Yes, a raw reaction.
Yeah,
Your reaction will be raw.
Yeah, I want to react to the matchups and then be able to gauge my feeling accordingly. So we will be doing that, a live unveiling, even though it's already been done for some of you.
Yeah, but it's. I'm looking forward to seeing all the color get out of your face when you start getting nauseous.
Oh, don't. Well, I don't want to hear that.
It's disgusting. It's so gross. Some of them are. Some of them very well done.
Okay.
It feels right, but
Okay.
some of it's pretty gross.
Okay. The Power Five conferences have today released a joint statement in support of a new bill in Congress. The bill is House Bill number 8534. It is called the Protecting Student Athletes Economic Freedom Act.
Right.
Which basically means there will be absolutely no protections of a student athlete's economic freedom. I mean, come on, man. Come on.
This is the exact opposite of the movie Killer Clowns from Outer Space. You've probably never seen that movie, Jay.
I have actually.
Okay, yeah, but you could, without having,
It's
any
actually a pretty good
background,
movie.
It's fun.
Yeah,
It's
all
fun.
things considered, it's one of those. It's
Pure,
actually, yeah.
unadulterated fun. But you know exactly what you're getting into when you just read the title.
Yeah. No, that's true.
This one's not that. It's a little more misleading.
This whole release, by the way, basically doesn't tell you jack squat about what this bill is actually going to do. But the joint release reads in part as follows. And again, this is the Power 5 conferences. So the Pac-12 still active, therefore it was part of this release. We are encouraged to see the progress being made on Capitol Hill to address the many issues facing the future of collegiate athletics. The advancement of the Protecting Student Athletes Economic Freedom Act by the Committee on Education and Workforce is a significant step forward in reaching a federal solution for many of the challenges currently affecting college sports. The recent settlement has only amplified the need for imminent bipartisan federal action to help secure the future of college athletics. Stop. Nothing's bipartisan anymore, sadly, in terms of support. That ain't happening. This legislation addresses one of the most critical lingering issues hanging over college sports today: student-athlete employee status. Protecting student-athlete status as students, not employees, is vital for preserving athletic and educational opportunities. Categorizing student-athletes as employees of their institutions would cause harm to the future viability of many college sports programs, particularly women's and Olympic sports. Congress remains the only legislative body that can ensure student-athletes remain students and not employees of their respective institutions. Again, this has only been advanced into the committee, nowhere close to a floor vote as of yet. So I don't know if this happens this year or not. We shall see. But again, it doesn't protect the student athletes. It protects the schools because of the status that this particular legislation could potentially grant. Very big difference. And I realize that to be serious for a second, I realize a lot of student athletes don't want to become employees of their schools. And I realize that some across the country have begun that process. And in all parts of the country, the UAB football team, the Dartmouth basketball team, the Northwestern basketball team, University of Southern California has had some movement on that. 3 of those 4 schools are private schools, so you don't get to learn quite as much about some of the things that they're doing. But they're, as private schools, have some different rights around them. We'll see where this goes. But, they're not protecting student athletes from anything, which is what kind of bothers me about the use of the word protecting.
Some false advertising. It's like being told that the bananas in your cereal and your regular cornflakes are going to make them sweeter, despite that not being
well, again, to be fair, my grandma didn't say that they would make them sweeter. It's just that cornflakes plus bananas equals a sweet breakfast cereal experience. And upon eating that a couple of times, I realized that was just not the case.
Yeah.
So it is kind of like that in that respect. You're
just
right.
Some mild grifting.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But my grandma was way too sweet to ever try to pull the wool over my eyes. Right? I need you to say yes.
I'm going to let you believe that.
I need you to say yes.
I'm going to let you believe that because you need to.
Well, she can't defend herself anymore, so I need to hold on to those ideals because she was a great lady. So
yes.
All right. Thank you very much.
Well, she got you to eat them, and it's a healthy cereal, which is what made her great.
Look at that. See?
Not because it's a sweet cereal.
The president of the USGA today said that there could be an easier way for golfers on the LIV Tour to find a way to be in the U.S. Open a little easier. Mike Wan said, quote, "We're going to talk about it this offseason, whether or not there needs to be a path to somebody or somebodies that are performing really well on LIV that can get a chance to play in that way. I think we are serious about that, exactly what it looks like and how that'll curtail. Not just being coy, we haven't done that yet. Most LIV golfers that didn't have any kind of automatic exemption into the field at the U.S. Open had to go through it the old-fashioned way in the qualifiers. Brooks Koepka, DJ, Bryson DeChambeau, Martin Keimer are amongst those that are playing this week. John Rahm had to pull out because of a toe injury, so He won't be there. If they want to do that, fine. But I still, it's just time for the USGA, the PGA Tour, the Live Tour to get off their rear end and either do this merger or don't. Just do the merger.
We've been talking about this for like over a year.
Over a year.
Yeah.
Let's get it back to what it needs. Yeah, let's get it back to what it needs to be. That's the problem. That's the issue. That's the thing you fix.
Just kiss already. You're already there.
Yeah.
You're leaning in. Just do it.
Speaking of that,
Merge.
hey, good for you. You didn't even mean to do that. But good news. An attorney for Rory McIlroy this week filed a motion to dismiss their divorce petition.
Just kiss already.
Rory McIlroy and his wife, Erica, are going to get back together. Quote, responding to each rumor is a fool's game. Over the past weeks, Erica and I have realized that our best future was as a family together. Thankfully, we have resolved our differences and look forward to a new beginning. That's good.
Sometimes, you think you want to be outside, and then you get outside, and then it don't take you very long to realize you don't want to be outside anymore. It's not what it used to be.
Speaking of being outside tonight, it's going to be hot, muggy.
Because it's hot outside.
And down in Orlando, the United States tonight will play Brazil in the final friendly matchup before the Copa America begins across the United States in the next couple of weeks. The United States was humiliated by Colombia on Saturday. 5-1 was the final. Brazil's better than Colombia.
I was going to say, a good thing you have a tune-up game going into – oh, wait.
Yeah. Wow. I'm really worried about what this U.S. men's national team is going to look like tonight. But
what are you more afraid of? What U.S. men's national team is going to look like, or Real Madrid watching that game, getting really intrigued, and plucking every single one of those Brazilian players and never losing a game again?
Yeah, well, I mean, they just got Kylian, so they don't. They all they did was win the Spanish League, win the Champions League, and then as a consolation prize, get the best player on the planet to come play for them starting next year. They don't need anything else.
I hate them.
They're fine. But that's tonight at 7:00. Braves will be in Baltimore tonight. Take on the O's. Spencer Schwellenbach will make his third start for the Atlanta Braves. And finally, a sad note to tell you about if you haven't already heard, but truly one of the best NBA players of all time and truly one of the best NBA executives of all time. The legendary Jerry West passed away today at his home in California. He was 86 years old. He is the logo. He's the guy they modeled the NBA logo on. He was the third player in NBA history to hit the 25,000-point mark. He made the All-Star game every single season that he played. He led the Lakers to the finals 9 times. He was the finals MVP in 1969 as a losing team. It was the first year the award was given out, and it is still the only time that a losing player was the finals MVP. He was part of the NBA's 75th anniversary team. People in my generation and in Elijah's, anybody that's, under, say, 60, really only knows Jerry West as the architect of the Showtime Lakers, and then re-emerged with the Lakers to build the Shaq and Kobe teams. Then went on to help the Clippers and the Grizzlies and was a consultant around the league for many, many years. Was on Dan Patrick a lot. That's where I got to really just hear a lot more of him. Dan's show this morning turned into a morning-long tribute because it happened during the news came down during the show. Dan was visibly upset. So were the guys. They'd gotten to know Jerry West through the years because he made so many appearances. Even one time, like surprising them with food when they were out in L.A. doing a show. It was very touching. It was very Dan Patrick's show today was very touching. This is someone, like I said, that Dan grew up. This was his favorite basketball player. He talks about Johnny Bench and Jerry West. Like I talk about Dale Murphy, or whoever your just absolute favorite player was as a kid. To him in basketball, Jerry West was the idol. But it was a good show despite tough news. But Jerry West, what an amazing legend that he was. And again, like I say, equally good at building teams as he was at starring for the Los Angeles Lakers. Also played in the NCAA championship as a college player, was an All-American at West Virginia, and won a gold medal for the United States in the 1960 Olympics. Dude did it all, man.
In that Olympics, they won their games by 40 points a game.
Yeah, may he rest in peace. That's our headlines of the day, brought to you by Integrated Media. Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union invites you to check out all that they can do for you in banking when you go to palmettocitizens.org. Checking account, savings account, credit card, car loan, student loan, home equity lines, mortgages, anything you need, and you can do it all for less. How, you ask? Well, listen, this is a membership organization, and it's not for profit. So they return earnings back to members in the form of fewer fees and lower rates when you want to borrow. Again, for whatever your needs, they've got something for you there. My wife and I are customers, have been for many years. 14 very convenient Midlands locations. Drive through, get in, talk with bankers, whatever it is that you need to do. Well, we use the Millwood branch. Great people up there. Again, whichever one you want to choose, find it, learn a whole lot more. PalmettoCitizens.org. Also updated the website, make it a whole lot easier for you to use. They're doing great things over there. Palmetto Citizens, achieve your potential. Twenty minutes after 5 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Yesterday, much of the sports world was really, I think, either angered, dismayed at the announcement that the great Joey Chestnut was going to be left out of the world-famous Nathan's hot dog eating contest on July 4th at Coney Island. But fret not, Joey fans. Sort of. What do you got?
You just might have to wait a little bit, but Netflix very involved in getting back in or getting
Live
into
sports.
the live sports, realm.
Competitive eating is live something.
Well, that's a live competition.
That's fair.
We can argue the semantics of calling it a sport or not, but it is a live competition, and we love sports beefs.
See what you did there.
It's time to take it literally, and that's what Netflix is doing. Called Unfinished Beef. The tweet from Netflix about 16 minutes ago says, a rivalry simmering for 15 years. Chestnut versus Kobayashi. Unfinished Beef, the ultimate hot dog eating competition, will air live on Netflix Monday, September 2nd.
Has Labor Day, I guess. Huh?
I quote tweeted it and said, this is like when the Lakers and Celtics got back to the NBA Finals to face off against each other in like 2009, about 15 or so years ago.
Yeah.
This is ramping back up an old rivalry. This is what I'm talking about. Kobayashi doesn't stand a chance, but I'm glad we can get in the room and we can really get
Kobayashi doesn't stand a chance because Joey's not going to be at the July 4th one, so his stomach is going to be so empty.
He'll be practically starving.
Yeah. I wouldn't even do it if I was Kobayashi at this point.
No, because it will be humiliating.
Yeah.
But you know what? That is where I will give him credit. It is not easy to go back up and stand in front of that man in his prime and try to take him down.
Is Kobayashi going to be at the Nathan's thing?
I don't think he's done Nathan's in a long time.
All right, then see, he'll be fine too.
Yeah. He hasn't done Nathan's in a long time. But, like, his prime and Joey Chestnuts, it wasn't close. We're talking, like, 15 glizzy difference between the two.
Yeah.
We're talking about, the top of their game.
I still think Nathan's, reconsiders and that Joey's going to make it.
They knew it's good for him.
Yeah. I mean, ratings bonanza. Like, get him back. I'm sure that's why John has called in on the phone line today to talk about Joey Chestnut not being part of the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. What else you got, sir?
It's huge news.
Well, I got some breaking news for you guys.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm moving back to Columbia.
Oh, all right.
There we go.
Okay. Okay.
Welcome back.
So,
All right.
thank you. Not yet, but I'll be back in about a week or so.
Okay. Please do not ask me to help you move, okay? I've done that enough for my friends back in the day, and I'm an old man with a bad back, so.
I'll take that into consideration, Jay.
Thank you, John.
But I want to talk about this Mainieri hire.
Okay.
And I'm going to say this. This is a great move by Ray Tanner. Whether or not it works, and I think it will, this is a great move. You go after for this program, you should be going after the best available candidate with the best resume, and that's what Mainieri has. I think that we discussed this before privately, Jay, that Monty Lee just would not have looked good from a PR standpoint. And, going back to Monty, when Ray hired Mark, that would have been the time to hire Monty. Right now is the time where you go all in and you go big. Ray went about as big as you can go. Again, whether or not it works, I applaud Ray Tanner for doing this because, again, this is the top of the heap right now. This is not somebody that is, a head scratcher that makes you say, who? This is Paul freaking Mainieri. This is somebody that you expect to get you back to the College World Series, and he comes in with it's kind of like when the cowboy, kicks in the door at the saloon. That is exactly what it's going to look like when Paul Mainieri takes the stage tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to it. And again, I applaud Ray for this. This is the kind of hire you need to make for a program like Carolina baseball.
Well, I agree with that. Thanks as always, buddy. And I'm glad you're moving back. That'll be good. He brings up an interesting point. First off, we talked about this a lot last week. Yes, if you had hired Monty Lee as your head coach right now, that was going to be a tough sell. We discussed that at length last week. Again, it's not directly about Monty's ability or lack thereof to coach.
It's the optics.
Yeah. Monty's a good baseball coach. Monty's a good recruiter. Those things aren't part of the debate. It's at this juncture for this program. Monty's not necessarily somebody that the top level schools were looking at as a head coaching candidate. You are South Carolina, and that was John's point just then. You got to go get that guy, and that's what we talked about. Again, we didn't know Mainieri was going to be in the mix. But he is. But John brings up an interesting point. If it works, he said. And there's the rub, because what is it? What is works, right? And I'm not trying to be all parsing statements here. Winning the College World Series, simply getting back to Omaha, making sure that you're in supers. We know it's not just hosting regionals and getting into a super regional the following week. But what is it? Making it to the College World Series is hard. Winning the College World Series is hard because you basically have to go do the same things you just did. As you talked about, we all know. That's what I love about this new format. I mean, week 1, you got to go win a 4-team regional. Week 2, you got to win a best of 3. Well, in the College World Series, it's the same thing. You got to win a 4-team regional, and then you got to win a best of 3.
Getting to the College World Series is half the battle.
Yeah. It's so hard to win. So what is it? What is works? I'm not questioning. It's rhetorical. And to some fans, let's just get back. To others, oh no, I think he's got to get to Omaha at least twice. And I don't know where the arbitrary things are going to come. Some of them will be unrealistic. He's got to win the World Series. Yeah, that's again. Mike Martin went 23 times.
Hard to do.
So it's a fantastic hire. The one gripe I suppose people have, complaint, concern, depending on how you want to label it, is that he'll be 67 when the next season begins. But he says he's feeling great. You stay in shape. You do the things you need to do. You'd be all right. I mean, listen, if Nick Saban had stayed in college, Nick Saban didn't retire because he didn't feel good anymore. He just said, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And that's fine. Like, to each their own. I know it's not college, but Greg Popovich just signed an extension to remain the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs. Pop's, 75?
Mm-hmm.
He feels good. He wants to do it.
He saw who they drafted last year and said, I can do more of this.
Let's go. Let's go get him. Sounds very much to me, and the people we've spoken with and the things we've heard, and I think we'll hear more tomorrow, that Paul Mainieri is energized to do it again and is excited to do it at a place where the expectations include Omaha on a regular basis, not just, advancing. Because as we said, he's not being asked to rebuild South Carolina baseball. South Carolina baseball has won about 80 games in the last 2 years. You've been to a super regional. You hosted a regional, and you were on your way to doing it again. Again, that's not saying, so therefore you don't even need a coaching change. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, though, is you've won 80 baseball games the last 2 years. This program is good.
But you're going into it, you're renovating a house with really good bones.
Yeah.
You don't have to rip up that. You don't have to take it down the studs.
No.
You've got a really good layer of foundation here that what you can work with.
You might want to bust out a wall and have one of those new modern, like, straight through big rooms. You're going to put some paint. You're going to sand the hardwoods and restain them.
You can do some modernization to the home.
You're going to call integrated media, and you're going to put up this kick-ass sound system all over the place.
Have the sickest man cave in the neighborhood. That's what we're shooting for here.
Maybe build a pool.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, no, seriously. Like, so I think it's a fine hire. Some of what are we doing here? I don't know. All right, Elijah's going to surprise all of us with the SEC ACC Challenge as part of the drive around. Coming up.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a few accidents to get to that are causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon, but we're going to lead off with some good news. And that's that the accident on I-26 westbound near exit 107B has been cleared, so traffic moving a whole lot better over on 26 West. We still have some other accidents that are causing some issues. One has the right lane completely blocked on I-20 westbound. That's going to be over near the Fairfield Road exit 70. Traffic at a standstill there at the moment. And the other two that we have, one's on I-26 eastbound at Bush River Road near exit 108A, and one on Old Orangeburg Road at Platte Springs Road.
It is Drive Around the SEC time. Welcome back in. Along with Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. Been talking a lot about Carolina baseball and the hiring of Paul Mainieri. Again, remind you that Coach Mainieri's introductory press conference will be tomorrow at 4 p.m., and we will be carrying that live for you as soon as it begins, working on a few other things around the press conference. So stay tuned for more of that. And tomorrow's planned remote for this program at Angry Fish Brewing in Lexington has been pushed to Friday. So we still invite you to come see us and help Angry Fish celebrate their 5th year in business. But it'll be Friday out there at 3 o'clock.
More fun day to do it anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
Friday.
Yeah, good point.
Fridays, at around the time of our show, 3 to 6.
Yeah.
Where else would you rather be? 5 o'clock.
Been drinking
Friday.
beer. Sure.
Drinking beer.
Sure.
It's a tradition unlike any other.
Safely, responsibly.
That's right, always.
Yes. All right, Drive Around the SEC time will feature Elijah surprising me. I only know one of these matchups because we've talked about it. The ACC, SEC, or SEC, ACC. I don't care how you want to do it. This release I'm looking at for Carolina says SEC, ACC.
Ooh, John Rothstein's tweet says ACC.
Yeah,
SEC.
alphabetical, right? Alphabetical. I don't care. Either way, Carolina's going to play at Boston College. That's the only one of these that I know. I told Elijah I wanted him to surprise me with the rest of them. So I have not looked at anybody's overall release. So let's go. Carolina at BC. What else we got?
We'll start with the traditional SEC versus ACC schools. And I say traditional loosely with the ACC because some of these schools have only been ACC members for like 10 years. But we'll lump them in together because it makes a little more sense considering they're on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Like Syracuse, who will be playing at Tennessee. That's a lot of orange.
I like that.
It's a lot of orange.
Okay.
A good basketball matchup.
I hope Syracuse is ready.
I think Tennessee will be really good. Syracuse will be better. That's one of my early basketball takes this year. Syracuse will be better, and I think they can get themselves into the tournament this year.
All right.
Really do. Feeling it.
Okay.
We'll also have Arkansas at Miami. John Calipari going over to play the Canes and Jim Larinaga.
Jim Larinaga's team's pretty good.
Yeah. We'll see what they are. Yeah. Big mystery. Florida State at LSU. I highly anticipate LSU to get a lot better. There's a good chance that they land transfer Coleman Hawkins, center from Illinois. Really good playmaker who's visiting LSU this week. If they land him, they will be a sneaky, decent team in the SEC, considering
Can I pause you real quick?
Weird they were last year.
All these games won't be on the same day, will they?
I don't think so. Okay. They weren't last year.
Okay.
Some will be like on that Tuesday. Some will, like one or two will be on Big Monday.
Okay.
I think they're going to squeeze a lot in on Tuesday, and you might have one or two more prime time games on Wednesday.
Okay.
So traditionally, they're not.
All right.
Kentucky will be at Clemson this year.
Huh.
So Mark Pope's first ACC SEC challenge will be up in the upstate.
Okay. That's interesting.
One of these games that will be a really good football game. I'm not excited to see it on the hardwood. Notre Dame at Georgia.
Yeah. That's fair.
Sneaky fun game. Ole Miss at Louisville. Because Louisville's going to be better.
Yeah, well, I mean, they got to be, right?
because they couldn't get worse. Yes, by principle of them not being worse.
Didn't they lose like -6 games last year?
Worse, yeah, it is worse than -6. What's the worst thing you can think of? Picture that in your head. Rhetorical question.
Right.
Imagine
now, what did they won like 4 games, right? Well, it was something terrible.
2 years ago, they went like 4-24.
Okay. Last year they were better.
Last year they flirted with double digits. They actually might have gotten double-digit wins,
Okay.
but they were not very good at all, and that's why Kenny Payne's not there anymore.
Yep.
Wake Forest will be at Texas A&M.
Okay.
I think that will be a really good basketball game.
Yeah, that's good.
Don't sleep on Wake.
Yeah, I like Steve Forbes.
Alabama at North Carolina.
Oh,
Two teams that
yeah.
met in the Sweet 16 last year, or back in March.
But it was a rematch. I'm like, well, it's really not.
It's not a rematch now. Terry made a good point one time. I was talking to Terry before one of our shows one day, and he's like, it's not a rematch. Like a Super Bowl rematch isn't a thing because the winner doesn't get the Lombardi Trophy.
Yeah.
And that makes a
especially
lot of sense.
when it's a rematch of the Packers and the Steelers.
So
and I'm like, well, wait a minute, it's in August.
Yeah, not really. I will refrain from calling it a rematch, but it is a game between two teams that played a really fun, contested game in the Sweet 16.
That's good.
So that might be the best game on the docket. Auburn at Duke will be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I like that.
Bruce Pearl.
That'll be a great chance for Auburn to go try to do that. Yeah, okay.
That's a huge opportunity.
Okay.
This two teams that were playing against each other in the NCAA tournament 2 years ago in the first 4, Pittsburgh at Mississippi State.
Okay.
That will be a good game. That could be a resume game for one of them.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt at Virginia Tech.
All right.
We'll see whatever Vanderbilt is. And then Virginia at Florida. Those are all the traditional ACC, SEC matchups. Now, if you're ready to get weird, I'll start from the better
You said Virginia
matchup.
at Florida.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, Virginia at Florida.
Okay.
Now this is where it gets weird. Texas in their first ACC, SEC challenge will be playing at NC State.
Okay.
They'll be in Raleigh.
Okay. At least they get a traditional ACC school.
Yes.
Yeah.
So good initiation into this, right?
That's good.
Oklahoma, for their first initiation into this challenge, they'll be hosting Georgia Tech.
Okay. Again, that's good. I mean, Georgia Tech's been in the league for a long time, so that's fine.
Now you ready to hear this is the last one. So there will be, I will say this, there will be no SMU playing in this challenge this year.
All right.
There will be no Stanford.
All right, so California.
At traditional SEC power, Missouri.
It's just weird.
When I read that, I wanted to throw up. It's disgusting. That's so bad. That should not count. In my opinion, we should not count the results of Cal at Missouri as a part of the ACC SEC challenge.
I'm going to hold on to
I don't like that.
my naive sports fan, again, I think I've used this term once this week already, cockeyed optimist hope that somehow, some way, enough happens, enough people sit down in a room and say, wait a minute, not any time, it won't be this year or next year probably. But like, wait, stop. We got to bring back the Pac whatever conference. We
got to regionalize.
Yeah, we
this to some
can't
degree.
do this.
We're spending what on airfare?
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
And I mean, I kind of
Cal at Mizzou.
I feel bad for SMU and Stanford. Why don't they just have SMU and Stanford play a third game, or just a game at all? I don't know what the conference schedule looks like yet.
Nothing says Atlantic Coast Conference will square off against the Southeastern Conference, quite like Missouri in California.
California
that's
at Missouri.
Amazing. The English language means nothing. A map means nothing.
Yeah.
These aren't real things.
That is. But, all right, so hang on. Let me see if I can pull.
I hope you can recover from that because it took me like 10 minutes.
Get these back up. All right. Now, all right, so Arkansas at Miami, California at Missouri, Florida State at LSU, Georgia Tech at Oklahoma, Kentucky at Clemson,
This is the hell we made. We might as well live in it.
Notre Dame at Georgia, Ole Miss at Louisville, Carolina at Boston College, Syracuse at Tennessee, Wake at A&M. God, there's so many. Alabama at North Carolina, Auburn at Duke, Pitt at State, Texas at NC State, Vandy at Virginia Tech, Virginia at Florida. Alabama at North Carolina, Auburn at Duke. Those are the two best games. Arkansas, Miami has intrigue. Kentucky going to Clemson is interesting. I don't know how good Clemson's going to be.
Well, they lose some, they gain some. The portal giveth and taketh.
And I'm surprised that Disney decided to send Kentucky to Clemson as opposed to
somebody to Rupp,
to Cameron, or to
more than likely
even
they'll play Duke anyway this year at the Champions Classic.
Okay, that could be it then.
Yeah,
or send Kentucky to Chapel Hill.
Yeah, I think it is their turn to play.
Or even to
play Duke.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, because you can't have Kentucky Louisville be this thing, can you?
Nah.
Like you wouldn't.
I mean, you can.
Yeah, but you wouldn't. Like Carolina Clemson, you wouldn't do that for Carolina Clemson. So yeah, you're not going to do that. Well, there you go. Those are on Tuesday, December 3rd, Wednesday, December 4th, the ACC SEC Challenge. That's the drive around. Postgame show continues. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Jay and Elijah with you. Final few minutes. Again, tomorrow, as part of the Postgame Show, we'll have Paul Mainieri's live introductory press conference. That's going to be held down at Williams-Brice in the Cockaboos Club. Again, for space purposes, there really isn't a room at Founders Park big enough for a press conference like this. So they'll be doing it over at the football stadium. That'll be tomorrow at 4. And again, Elijah and I working on a few other things around that, and we'll have more details for you ahead of tomorrow's program. All right, going to leave you with a little bit of trivia that I learned today. So NC State's going to the College World Series. They just beat Georgia the other night in a do-or-die game on Monday. NC State has become the second school to have their men's and women's basketball teams make the Final Four, have their football team finish in the top 25, and make the College World Series all in the same season, same school year. Who's the only other school that has done this? And I did not know in advance. I saw that about NC State and went and looked up who the other one was, and I found it out. And I was like, I would not have thought of them.
Really?
For this.
This makes one of my guesses feel off. But
Okay.
my first guess, 2006 LSU.
Okay. No.
Wow. Okay. 2003 Texas.
No.
1982 Southern Cal.
No.
1995 Oklahoma State.
No.
Dang. That's all I could think of where that was possible.
It's the 2013 I guess 12-13 school year. Louisville Cardinals.
Oh, you're kidding.
Louisville won the Sugar Bowl to finish
That's right.
11-2.
Teddy Bridgewater.
Charlie Strong beat Will Muschamp's Florida. Both men's and women's teams made the Final Four, and Dan McDonnell led Louisville to the College World Series. Louisville was the first school to do it, and NC State becomes the second.
ACC.
Yeah, I know, right? And it's interesting, both those schools take their sports very seriously, and they invest heavily in them, but you would almost think it would have been something. LSU is a good example, but I don't know enough about LSU women's basketball today, but maybe not back then. And football is going to typically be a top 25 team. And we know what LSU baseball is all about, right? But I don't know. North Carolina maybe makes some sense.
I was trying to think of some North Carolina years. I don't think I was like.
And you said Texas for one of your guesses, right?
03.
Like that would make some sense because both basketball programs are solid, and baseball's a blue blood.
So yeah, that's why LSU 2006 because Big Baby Davis took him to the Final Four. Coach Chapman had the women's team going. I think they might have gone the next year.
Yeah.
But there was a time where Simone Augustus played, and they were getting to Final Fours pretty regularly. And I can't remember if 2006 would have been a little after Simone or before. But then, of course, the football pedigree, they're almost always in the top 25, and
Yep.
you know what they are in baseball.
Yep. But I thought that was pretty interesting.
That
so
was my best guess.
Kudos to the NC State Wolfpack. That's a nice goal, man.
That is. That's a very successful athletic season.
I remember, and I don't know what they don't. I'm not even sure if Wisconsin has a baseball team, but I just remember the year.
I don't think they do, actually.
I just remember the year Ron Dane won the Heisman. He led Wisconsin to the Rose Bowl, and then a couple months later, Wisconsin made the Final Four. And I was like, you know what? That's a year. Have a year Wisconsin sports. Heisman winner, Rose Bowl, Final Four. That's a big deal. And maybe I don't know. I couldn't tell you what Wisconsin hockey did or anything like that. I don't know.
But they're always in the mix, Wisconsin. Good hockey school.
Sure. But no, so Louisville 2012, 2013 school year, and NC State this season. Men's and women's Final Four, top 25 football team at the end of the season, finish in the top 25. And a trip to the College World Series. So pretty cool stuff. Speaking of hoops, tonight in Dallas, Game 3. Boston is up 2-0. I was just telling Elijah, there was a headline that went by a second ago that said Kyrie has told Luka that Kyrie, needs to play better. It's
great advice.
Solid for
That's
Kyrie.
So good. I'm sure Kyrie didn't think of that.
Self-awareness there from Kyrie to realize he's got to play better.
And you know what? If we're going to celebrate Jerry West and the Hall of Fame life he lived and basketball career he lived, we all need to cheer hard against the Celtics tonight. That's what we need to do.
Yeah, those darn Celtics.
If we want to honor Jerry West's memory and legacy, I want to see the Celtics get crushed by 20+ tonight. I want to see that so bad.
He will be honored tonight in pregame. Rest in peace, Jerry West, 86 years old. In the Hall as a player, in the Hall as an Olympian, had not yet been inducted into the Hall of Fame as an executive, but will be later this year. That was already scheduled.
He's in the Hall of Fame 3 different times.
Yeah. Oh, he's amazing.
Mavs by 30.
He's amazing. Lots to get to tomorrow. Thanks, as always, to David Cloninger, Koki Riley for joining us. For Elijah, I'm Jay. We'll see y'all.